On this episode of the Star Trek Universe podcast, we are talking about the new Star Trek short treks, The Trouble with Edward, right after this.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I'm David C. Robertson.
Oh, man, David. Dave,
yeah, man.
This is maybe one of my favorite little pieces of Star Trek in a long time. Oh, man, this is good.
Yeah, and I wish I had, all the time in the world to just sit and, watch it over and over again and write down every piece of dialogue that H. John Benjamin utters.
Yeah, it's just everything he says. We often write down our favorite quotes from an episode, and there's nothing. It's just everything H. John Benjamin says is amazing.
Now, if you don't know who H. John Benjamin is, he plays the titular character, Edward Larkin, in this episode. He is a voice actor. And his comedic timing is just completely on point. You probably know who he is. If you've ever watched Bob's Burgers, he is Bob. If you have seen home movies, he's Coach McGurk. And if you watch Archer, he is Sterling Archer.
Or if you listen to Jazz Daredevil, the album, he's the guy who can't play piano. Have you heard this album?
No, I don't know what that is.
Oh, my Lord. It's an album. Okay. Small diversion from our Star Trek, but it's about H. John Benjamin and how funny he is. He, to me, came up with a new kind of joke. But he put out an album called Jazz Daredevil. And what he did is he hired everything he needed to make a jazz album, a jazz piano album. He hired an amazing band. They sound great, great recording. Whoever did all of his charts and everything, the music sounds amazing. And it's all piano focused, and he plays the piano. The thing is, he doesn't play the piano.
That's amazing.
So he put together this huge album, and it's just him plinking away. And, every time it cuts to him for a solo, he's just like do do beep boop 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 do do. And what's amazing about it is, he's not playing it badly. He just can't play it. He doesn't know how to play the instrument. So you can tell he's trying. He'll find a note and keep doing that note because he realizes it sounds good. He's trying his best, but he's not a piano player. So it's just bad. And I don't know. It's just these amazing choruses where the band's in and playing all these horns and sounds great. And then it comes to him and he's just do do bleep bleep bleep.
That's fantastic.
It's an entire album of that. It's great.
I will never listen to that in full.
Well, there's also a few just H. John Benjamin skits in between, but
good.
It's funny enough. Like I said, it is a new kind of joke. I've never heard anyone do that before, and that in itself is just a different kind of joke than I've ever heard. It's so funny. And the fact that he did an entire album is why it's so funny. I don't know. Some of them are songs you'll even recognize, he does some standards and stuff. I don't know. Anyway, it's great. I highly recommend it.
All right. Well,
okay.
Cool.
So H. John Benjamin, comedy genius is what we're saying.
Yeah. So you want to do the synopsis?
Sure. You want me to get at it? Young science officer has been promoted to command. She's on the Enterprise with Captain Pike, and she is leaving the Enterprise to go become the commander of her own ship. And she enters the ship and is going around. Their mission is to feed a population of a starving planet, and everyone seems on board with sort of the same vision of this project. And then it comes to Edward, played by H. John Benjamin, and he has the plan to use these animals that he found native to another planet that he believes if he speeds up their breeding, he can create a great food source, and that food source, of course, is the Tribble.
Yeah.
And she says, is there moral implications? Or is it okay ethically? Because are they intelligent? And he's like, ethical for the Tribble? I don't think that matters. And so she tells him to give up the project of making the Tribbles a food source, and he does not. He goes behind her back and injects the Tribbles with his own DNA, and somehow causes the Tribble to massively breed super fast, as we've seen in other Star Trek. So this is the origin story for the Tribbles, and it's just perfect. And then the entire ship is slowly taken over by the Tribbles, and as the entire crew evacuates, because the entire ship looks like that cargo bay did in the original Trouble with Tribbles. The entire ship is just expanding with Tribbles. H. John Benjamin stands saying he's not a dummy. He was right. He's created one of the biggest discoveries of all time, and then he's covered in Tribbles. And that's how the episode ends. And then there's a beautiful after credit sequence, in case you missed it, where they do a Tribble cereal commercial. And that was also great. I had to headcanon that as that has to be a skit done by a comedy troupe inside of the Federation.
Oh, I didn't headcanon that as anything. I just felt like it was a joke.
It is purely a joke, but like it's now on a Star Trek show, so I have to headcanon it because that's how my brain works.
All right, so we man, just everything as he's explaining the Tribbles that he's showing them, and the captain is like, Lucero is like, well, they're pretty darn cute, and he's like, yeah. He's like not reading the room at all, really. He's like, yeah, and if you take all the fur off, it's pretty much all meat.
Like a scallop. Blood red. And
I love when she's like asking him about the moral implications.
No. She asks about their intelligence. Are they intelligent?
Yeah.
And he says, oh, I'm not sure. It's hard to tell. They don't have a face, but they're real easy to catch. They'd be really easy to hunt and to kill. One fell off my desk earlier and just died immediately.
So there's that. Yeah.
So there's that.
But my favorite bit is like, he's talking about how he doesn't know if they're intelligent or not. He's like, but I mean, if it's a problem, she was like, I'm talking about the moral implications. He's like,
oh, for the Tribble?
If it's a problem, I can probably just, genetically engineer some brain damaged Tribbles. And everyone groans. Everyone's like, oh.
I can genetically engineer them all to be brain damaged. He just doesn't know how to read the room. I love it, man. And I thought Captain Pike's advice to her was kind of odd for Captain Pike. It's kind of like not as hopeful as we're used to Captain Pike being, when he's like, not everyone is going to be as smart as you. Not everyone's going to be as sharp as you. And she's like, you're right. Some of them will be sharper. And then her problem is she kind of doesn't nip Edward in the bud quick enough. I don't know what she could have done. She did the right thing. She took him off the project, but and I love at the end of the episode, they're like basically court-martialing her, the captain, and they're like, you were captain of the ship for 1 week.
Yeah.
and your entire ship was overrun with a invasive species. You allowed that species to enter the planet down below and destroy it and cause the evacuation of entire civilization. And now, as far as we can tell, the Tribbles are entering Klingon space. So now it's a diplomatic incident as well. What do you have to say for yourself? And she's just like, Edward was an idiot.
Which is great, because what's hilarious is like he sends anonymous messages to Starfleet saying she's dumb. That's his opposition to her. She's dumb.
Yeah.
And over the course of the episode, somehow convinces himself that she called him dumb.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I never called you dumb.
Yeah, as he's dying,
you
she's
said
like,
I was dumb.
As he's dying for proving he's not dumb, he says, I'm not dumb. And she's like, I never called you dumb. You called me dumb. It's just such a great, just a wonderful H. John Benjamin role. Like, my only sadness is that he's gone. Like that, at least in this, part of the timeline, he is now covered with Tribbles in a ship that can no longer, the life support can no longer, exist. But, so I want to be like, I'll be upset if Edward is not like a crew member in Lower Decks. Or like a descendant of this Edward. Like if it's set in TNG timeline, I'd love it if he's like a crew member on Lower Decks.
Here's something that like I was scanning through the episode just before we were recording, and I noticed something kind of interesting.
Okay.
When he is injecting the human DNA into the Tribble, he's wearing a Section 31 outfit.
Is he really?
He's got a black badge. He's got he looks like he's wearing Leland's outfit, really.
Did we say that the black badge? I thought the black badge just meant like science or something.
I don't know.
I'm looking at it now. He's wearing a black smock. He's still wearing his blue uniform, but he's wearing like a black, sort of like coverall smock. Because remember in the first episode of Discovery, that black badge is part of Discovery, not necessarily Section 31. But yeah, like it is funny that he's wearing that. I don't know that means that.
I thought the black badges were Section 31, and Section 31 was just on that ship.
Maybe. He's also, like I said, it's not actually a black badge. I think it's just part of his smock. I'm looking at it now. I don't know. But yeah, he is wearing a black smock over his blue uniform.
I like the idea that Section 31 put an operative, even if he is an idiot.
Right.
I like the idea that they put an operative in there to, like, genetically engineer the Tribble to do that, to cause a problem for the Klingons.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Section 31 somehow. That's a great conspiracy theory. I don't know if it has much water, but based on all of this, just because it seems like this was not his intent exactly, even though. But you know what? Maybe it is. Maybe it was his exact intent. Maybe the captain she took over for. I don't know why that captain left, but maybe the captain he took over was in on the plan, and then now Section 31's trying to accomplish this, and Edward is trying to get her fired because of that. Yeah, I think that's all.
Maybe
that's all. It's all possible.
No, sure. I don't want to eat them. I mean, I have for research purposes.
And I fed one to Noel. He liked it, and he's a foodie. But I'm
no chef.
But I'm no chef. It's all so good. So we're not going to sit here and quote the whole thing. So something that I actually am sort of like Star Trek being this funny. I actually find podcasts about comedies to be dreadful most of the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I don't want to overanalyze this because I love geeking out about it. I never like to overanalyze comedy. There's a couple podcasters that cover things I really like. So I've tried listening to those podcasts. Like there's some podcasts about Rick and Morty. And I'm like, I love Rick and Morty. I'm going to listen to this podcast. And they basically just spend their entire time analyzing why jokes are funny, which I think is like insane. So I don't want to overanalyze this episode. I just want to say if you haven't seen this episode, go watch it. I just love it. It's there's so much in the Star Trek universe where they try to fit little nuggets of canon. Like, it's kind of like an Enterprise where they explain the Klingons' change and look, or whatever, like little things like that where they do sort of retcons to make things make sense. And this is one of my favorites. I love it. They just to me, they hit the note perfectly. It's really funny, and it kind of has the same sense of humor, modernized, of course, as the original Tribble episode to me. Does that make sense? Yeah.
They do a lot of the same shots and stuff, too. A lot of the same comedic beats. Captain sitting down on a Tribble. The Tribbles falling out of the storage containment units. A lot of the same stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think they did a really good job of. It's an origin story for the Tribbles, man. It's something I didn't know I needed, but I love it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it quite a bit. Now, this after credit sequence looks like an old 80s commercial on a VCR tape. I love this whole thing. I love that the ship is called the USS Ravenous. I love that the kids are eating the Tribbles, and it's just, they're like, there's a prize in the bottom of every box after you'll ever get to the bottom.
Oh man, the Stardate breakfast was my favorite part.
Stardate breakfast. My favorite part was that it came in 3 flavors: original, Harry Berry, and new spicy ranch. And one of the little animated Tribbles goes, "We're pregnant with flavor," as he like gives birth to 2 more Tribbles. That was great to me.
Yep.
There's a whole bunch that I want to go back and like. There's like all this text and stuff on the bottom of the screen about Edward and his human DNA in the Tribbles.
Yeah, I saw that. The only breakfast cereal with the most human DNA in any breakfast cereal, or something like that. Oh man!
And I loved in the actual episode when they're like disgusted that he put his own DNA into it. And he's like, "What? It's not like his Knowles.
No,
Knowles
he
better."
He said like Knowles DNA would be better.
Yeah. It's like you were just not picking up on what's wrong with this at all. I
think he also just has a chip on his shoulder about Noel.
Yeah.
Noel tried it, and he's a foodie. It's like he has a weird respect for Noel, and he like has a weird competitive nature with Noel.
Yep.
It just has a picture of Edward, and it says, "It's my DNA. Override your safety protocols on your replicator."
Oh, that's so gross.
Oh, it's great. It's really good.
By the way, how did you feel about his underwear scene? That he was just walking the halls in his underwear?
I loved it.
I did too.
I don't think that would be tolerated, but clearly, that's the point.
Why wouldn't it be?
Why would it be? I think like people would be like, "Hey, put on some clothes. At least a skirt."
It's Roddenberry's future, man. It's Roddenberry's future. You go back to some of those TNG episodes, season 1, season 2. Go to original series. Like Kirk's actively walking the halls shirtless with like yoga pants on. Man,
yeah, no, I get it. It's fine, but it's I think. It would have been looked down upon similarly to how it's looked down upon all the other things that he does. It's just kind of like it's not
tone
like
deaf.
It's tone deaf. It's tone deaf. It's not attractive. Like Kirk walking around in yoga pants and shirtless was like an attractive thing. He's like, this is a choice. That looked like he just didn't take the time to put pants on.
It's like, I'm leaving from my workout.
The underwear barn door was clearly visible. Like. You go out in public with the barn door visible, you're just playing with fire. That's all you're doing.
Yeah. All right. So I got a little bit, just a little bit of trivia here. The only thing that I feel like was really just not perfect about this episode, if we're saying that this is, truly canon, was that Edward claims that the Tribbles breed very, very slowly. Which would seem to imply that his genetic manipulation is responsible for their fast breeding.
Yes.
Across the board. But in Enterprise, in an episode called The Breach, Dr. Phlox refers to them as being prodigious breeders. So I guess we could say that over 100 years, maybe because they could have evolved because they like overpopulated their own planet and then like slowed down tremendously. Mm-hmm. Like, at some point they just became slow breeders because of that.
Right.
And maybe he's just, reawakening that trait. I mean, that's how I'm going to have to headcanon it.
Here's another headcanon for you if it makes you feel better.
Sure.
The word prodigious, which could mean what it means, what they meant for it to mean. But it also it just means remarkably or impressively or to a great extent or unnaturally or abnormal, according to the dictionary.
Okay.
So it could
that could be
unnatural or abnormal. Definitely could be what that means. The fact that they don't seem to do it sexually, the fact that they are born pregnant. Of course, that's said in this episode that was part of what Edward did to them. But anyway, could be one of the other meanings of prodigious. But yeah, it could mean that maybe they like to a great extent or to a impressive extent. Could mean that they like, maybe they can even though they breed slowly, maybe they even breed in really harsh circumstances, or or the fact that apparently they somehow make it from the ship to the planet. Like maybe they can survive in all kinds of environments, which seems to be the case with the Tribbles. It seems like they don't need much in the way of, well, clearly, like they basically break the laws of thermodynamics. Like they're creating more matter than they're taking in, because they're not really eating. They're just creating more Tribbles. So like, you know, that's all. I don't know. Maybe they still do that, just not at the same rate.
Well, you know, previously in Trek canon, the only thing is like they won't breed if you don't feed them. If you feed them, they breed.
Oh, really? So that's funny.
Yeah.
It reminds me a little more of the Gremlins now.
Yeah, that's why it was such a big deal that they got into the Quadritriticale.
Gotcha. I wonder if it said what they can eat, because in this it seemed like they were getting all on the ship and like they were destroying parts of the ship. I wonder if they can eat parts of bulkheads and stuff, like if they're like the termites of space.
No. That's interesting.
Anyway, we're looking at a bunch of episodes that are jokes and trying to headcanon a way to make them all make sense, which I think is fair, and it's exactly what I want to do. But
hey, man, some people tune in for that kind of shit.
Oh yeah. But it also is like clearly in that Enterprise episode, that was just a reference to the fact that they were fast breeding, like in the original series. So you know, we can headcanon it, but it is just a flaw in this episode being set where it is. They could have set this in the Enterprise timeline, but then Pike couldn't have shown up.
And it does bother me a little bit. It bothers me just a little bit that they didn't explain the eating thing. Like, come on, guys.
Right. Well,
come on.
That's for the next canon fix thing. You explain that they're like termites for starships, and they're just eating bulkheads.
If you come down to me, I'm going to say it's a parallel reality anyway. Look at the designs of the Enterprise. That shit don't work. I think that's all I've got on this episode, though.
All right, guys. We'll be back in a couple days. We're going to be starting our Picard preparation watch of lots of Picard-centric, Data-centric, and 7 of 9-centric episodes. So pretty excited about that. We'll be back in a couple days with Measure of a Man. So go watch the TNG. I think it's season 2, episode 9, Measure of a Man. Peace.
Live long and prosper.
To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUcast.com, at StarTrekUcast on Twitter, or search for the Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram or Facebook. And if you want to hear more from David C. Robertson, search for the DC On Screen podcast in your podcast app now, or go to maladjusted.tv for his comedy sketches. If you want to hear more from me, Matthew Carroll, search for the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or the Orville Universe podcast in your podcast app, or check out my music. Just search for Matthew Carroll wherever you listen to music.